So today I'd like to take some time to discuss yogas within the astrological chart. And this is a topic that we're going to be going into very deeply in a 2 to 3 month class starting here in November. This course is part of the astrological apprenticeship course. It's actually the final course in the year 2 series, year 2 out of 4. But I decided that I want to open this course up to the public because yogas are such a popular topic. And what I've noticed when people study yogas or talk about yogas, they typically do so in a fairly superficial way. And there's a lot to understand about yogas. And that's why oftentimes when you talk to an astrologer or you look at a chart and you see a particular yoga, whether it's a Raja yoga or a Karaka Arishta yoga or a Moksha yoga, or whatever it might be, that it doesn't always necessarily give the results expected, because most people only utilize these superficial rules in regards to yoga, such as you get the Lord of the 9th and the 10th together, therefore you have a Raj yoga, therefore it should work out well. And when it comes down to exploring yogas, there's numerous principles that we have to employ that if we learn them well, we can use the formulas for yogas as outlined in Brihat Parashara Shastra, and we can have a much greater sense of how well yoga is going to function. Now, what are the kinds of yogas that we'll be exploring in this course, and what are the kinds of yogas that we need to know about? Bhava yogas. This is a very common yoga. This is a yoga that is written about in Brihat Parashara Shastra. There's 144 of them. And essentially they're the combinations of all of the house lords from one house into another house. Some books that go into Bhava yogas give some better explorations of them. The Art and Science of Vedic Astrology Volume 2, as well as William Levacy's book, Beneath the Vedic Sky. But again, what these books do is they give the general understanding of the yogas, what they could mean. But if we know how to apply particular formulas as given by Brihat Parashara Shastra, it's easier for us to see just how the yoga is going to work specifically. So those of you who have already been taking the apprenticeship course and focusing on the Bhava yogas and so on, now by taking this course we're going to learn to dial it in to see more specifics about the yogas. So we have Bhava yogas, we have Raj yogas, which we've already discussed, which is often related to lords of trines and lords of angles coming together, bringing together a sense of power and purpose. But again, how are those yogas going to function? We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit. We have Viparit yogas, sometimes referred to as reverse Raj yogas, where we have planets which are difficult, cruel, or they rule over difficult houses, and they mutually impact each other. And by them mutually impacting each other, it serves to lift a person up in life. So these are important yogas to know. Artha, Kama, and Moksha yogas, whether a person's life is going to be devoted more towards the financial aspects of things, financial responsibilities, wealth, whether it's going to be more devoted to enjoyment in life, whether the life is going to be more devoted to moksha or liberation, liberating activities such as contemplation and spirituality. There are particular ways to see this within a chart. There are also many named yogas, but we're not necessarily going to get too much in the name yogas, because what I have found is that once you understand the principles of how yogas work, how the formula functions, the different kinds of yogas, how the planets, what they represent in and of themselves as karakas and so on. Many of the named yogas are good to learn, but once you know the principles, you don't really need the named yogas, because you know how, when two planets come together, what they're going to do. Are they going to act like one of these named yogas? So the named yogas are nice to know. They're nice to memorize, because when you're looking at a chart, if you've memorized 300 named yogas and you see one in particular, that can trigger an intuitive hit, and then you can give some good information to your client. But our goal is to learn the principles for those times when either our intuition isn't working profoundly, or many people just don't have good intuition. So we learn to use the formulas, we learn to use the principles to see just how the yogas are actually going to function. And how do we do that? Well, we start to pull in a particular kind of principle technique called Ishta and Kashta. Ishta and Kashta shows a planet's capacity to do good or to share good influence. This is related to a Shadbala technique, which we covered about 2 courses ago in the apprenticeship course. But since I'm going to treat this as a standalone course, you won't need to know all the specifics of Shadbala. We're simply going to focus on Ishta and Kashta, the Shubha and Ashubha. So this is indicative of the merit and demerit a planet has accumulated. So this is related to dignity in particular. Again, this is something we went over very deeply in the apprenticeship course, but as long as you have a general idea of how a great friend planet works, or a friend planet or an exalted planet works, we can tie this into the Shubha Ashubha portion. Also Digbala, which is related to Shadbala. This shows the directional strength of the planet. So by figuring out the mathematical values of these three things, we can add them to a formula which will tell us, is this yoga going to function well with strength? Or is this going to be a weak yoga where the person doesn't really see the results of it? Is this going to be a profoundly strong yoga where it dominates the rest of their life? These mathematical calculations allow us to understand just how particular yogas are or are not going to work within a chart. There are also variations of yogas, and these come about due to the way planets rule houses as related to ascendants. So for example, when we think about Jupiter and Venus coming together, this is going to function very differently for a Sagittarius ascendant than it would for a Taurus ascendant. So the kinds of yogas that are made when these two planets come together are going to be very different depending on the houses they rule over. For one ascendant, it may be better than the other ascendant. And once we get a sense of this, once we know what kind of house lords maybe obstruct a yoga, prevent it from giving its fruits, then we can start to see things like, is the yoga stainless? Is it able to function with ease, with nothing getting in its way? And again, these different kinds of yogas, it's like having a person who has all the support they need in their life. This could be a stainless yoga, nothing gets in the way. Or we might have a flawed or a stained yoga, where the success potential is there, but there are various obstructing planets, and we have to learn what are those obstructing planets for the particular ascendants. And once we know that, we can see yoga, but then we can look at the aspectual value, we can look at the formula we just discussed to determine how obstructed is this yoga, or how supported is this yoga, and where is the difficulty going to come from if there is difficulty. There's even ruined yogas, where you see a yoga that looks fantastic, but if you dig a little deeper, you will see that there's actually insurmountable obstacles related to that particular yoga. So by considering these things, essentially what this does is it allows us to see the power and the potential of the chart mathematically. And by doing that, that assists our intuition. But the great thing about the mathematics of it all is that we can utilize these principles even when our intuition is not functioning full steam, or even if we don't really have that great of an intuition. So when it comes down to yogas, what we have to realize is that there are many different kinds of yogas, number one. Number two, there is a particular formula to determine, is a yoga going to function well? Number three, we can see there are various grades of yogas, in the sense that some yogas will function effortlessly. But we can also see, are there obstructing planets that are going to get in the way of the yogas? And if so, then we can counsel the people that we're working with to say, here's what's going to get in your way. And so if you can bring more awareness and attention to that, then we can focus on the positive aspects of these yogas, the greater strength of these yogas, and so on. And finally, one of the most valuable things about this whole process is determining what is a person's general direction in life. Are they going to be focused more on artha, or wealth, or their financial responsibilities? Is that their calling, their direction? Are they going to be more focused on just simply enjoying life? Do they have that blessing to enjoy life? Or are they going to be pulling away from the world and focused more on what we call moksha, or liberating yogas? And what we find is that everyone's chart has a combination of all of these. So it's rare to find a chart that's got all moksha yogas, all karma yogas, all dharma yogas, and so on. Usually there's an influence of both coming in and going out, which leads me to the final point of understanding how these yogas work. Once we know how to apply these processes, then what? Well, now we can plug them right into the dashas. We can look to see when and how are they going to be activated by transit. So now we can see the baseline foundation of a person's life. What are the probabilities of their life, potentials of their life? But once we plug it into the dashas, once we get that far within our studies, we will be able to get a sense that of when will these particular yogas, for good or for ill, rise and fall within their life, which is very important. That's part of the whole point of practicing astrology for a lot of people. So anyway, this is going to be the focus of the Mathematical Yogas course, which this year, this is 2017, will be starting in November 15th. But I am opening it up to the public because I think that it will be worthwhile for more people to have a deeper and richer sense of just what yogas are and how they function. That way we can all explore these things with a little more depth, and I'd like to see that happen. So we've already got a full cohort of astrological apprentices for this particular year. So open this up to the public. Right now we have about 10 spaces open. So if you are interested in taking this course and exploring this work, I'll put a link at the bottom of this video in the information section here on YouTube. You can follow that link, and if you feel like joining up, you're welcome to. Just send me a little information about your past experience in astrology, what you've studied so far, what you know or what you don't know, and we can see if it'll be a good match. But right now we've got about 10 spaces open, and hopefully by November 10th we'll be closing registration for good, because the course itself will start around the 15th of November 2017. All right, so it's good talking to you, and we may try to do some more videos on this channel related to yogas. In fact, I probably will. All right, so be well, and we'll be in touch soon.